Let's not pretend these people have ended up in poverty, but you'd be surprised just how much money some royals can lose. But any amount is better than losing your head. Keep watching for a slice of history. Marie Antoinette's descent into misfortune is probably the most famous in history. And, of course, she ended up losing far more than access to the royal treasury. It could be argued that Antoinette is one of the most unfairly remembered royal figures from her era. It's far from a settled historical fact that she ever even said the phrase, "let them eat cake," for example. And she certainly was not personally responsible for the country's economic disaster thanks to her large shopping budget. Nevertheless, Antoinette became a symbol of the wealthy elite's disregard for the lives of the poor during the French Revolution, and that perception of her life still endures today. Indeed, Antoinette was an incredibly lavish spender. According to a signed notebook from 1781, the Queen's proposed household budget was over $915,000, roughly $18.5 million in today's dollars. The young queen, who became known as Madame Deficit, was fond of dressing extravagantly in diamonds and silk. She even sometimes exceeded her clothing budget of what would be $3.6 million today, by as much as double. The French Revolution was famously bloody, and revolutionaries executed hundreds of aristocrats in its aftermath. They eventually captured Antoinette and her husband, King Louis XVI. The couple was imprisoned and executed by guillotine, while their young son, Louis Charles, later died in prison. Sometimes, royals can be happy to lose their fortunes. Take Japan's former princess Mako Komoro, for example. Japanese law states that if a female member of the imperial family marries a commoner, she has to relinquish her royal status. So when Princess Mako finally married her longtime commoner boyfriend, Kei Komoro, she had to give up her position for good, which she seems fine with, to be honest. During a press conference at the time, Mako said, "I'm very sorry for the inconvenience caused, and I'm grateful for those who have continued to support me. For me, Kei is irreplaceable. Marriage was a necessary choice for us."
To me, he is irreplaceable. Our marriage is a necessary step for us to be able to protect our hearts in a cherishing way.
She even rejected the payout that Japanese royals are given when they formally leave the family. The payment, a cool $1.23 million, would have been funded by taxpayers, which is part of the reason Mako turned it down. She and her new husband also paid for a press conference venue themselves and got married at a registry office. They later moved into a condo in New York, where Kei works as a law clerk. If you're looking for a modern riches to rags story with some pretty swanky rags, look no further than King Constantine II of Greece. In 1964, Constantine was a handsome 24-year-old king who had just gotten married to a beautiful Danish princess named Anne-Marie. But just 3 years later, all hell broke loose when a coup forced the royal family into exile. Constantine and the rest of the Greek royals were stripped of their palaces, titles, property, and passports. After a failed counter-coup, Constantine even had to ask a valet for money to fuel their escape plan. The property that he and his family lost was later valued somewhere between $500 million and $550 million. But Constantine lived it up in England for the next several decades, even hosting parties attended by other royals. His home in London had 13 bedrooms and sold for over $13 million in 2013. So exile certainly didn't exactly leave him a pauper. Constantine put the mansion up for sale because he had decided to move back to Greece and live life as a commoner. When Town & Country asked the ex-king why he wanted to go back, he explained, "Look at ancient Greek history. All Greeks who live in exile, they want to go back. It's in the blood." Funnily enough, the one pushing hardest was my wife. I think she realized I would be happy only when I came back home. Belgium's Delphine of Saxe-Coburg is an artist who claimed for years that she was the daughter of the abdicated King Albert II, even though Albert insisted she was not. After a DNA test proved that Delphine was Albert's daughter, she was formally granted the title of princess in 2020, but she didn't let it go to her head. At the time, she said, "I'm still going to be Delphine. I'm not going to be hanging out in the streets and saying, 'Please call me princess.'" A lawyer representing Delphine told the Brussels Times that there would be no question of a possible royal endowment because she had no plans to take on any royal duties.
But I said, I'm not asking anything.
You don't expect anything?
No.
While she missed out on access to her father's royal fortune for decades, she is entitled to receive an inheritance. Moreover, Albert was ordered to pay back the $4.1 million in legal fees Delphine accrued while trying to prove her lineage. Unfortunately, Princess Delphine's royal relatives have been less than supportive. She did eventually meet with her father, though, so it looks like they're trying to mend a few fences. One infamous tale of a fallen royal family is that of the Romanovs, the former czars of Russia. As the last imperial dynasty in Russia, the Romanovs were worth an eye-popping $45 billion when they were deposed by the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. The family's rule over Russia was infamously brutal and oppressive, but they themselves met a similarly unpleasant end. Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children were kidnapped and held prisoner by Bolshevik revolutionaries in Siberia. They were all later executed by firing squad and bayonet in the basement of a house. Though rumors that one or more members of the family managed to escape the execution have continued even today, DNA analysis of their remains has proved that everyone in the immediate family was killed that day. But there is another mystery surrounding the family. A portion of their vast trove of jewelry and other treasures remains missing. This hoard includes a sapphire tiara, a sapphire bracelet, and emerald necklace. Other items seized from the family were documented, however, including gold chains and trinkets, silver serving dishes, and a large collection of fine furs. Fans of the Netflix series The Crown may be familiar with one of the British royal family's most scandalous members, King Edward VIII. In 1936, Edward abdicated the throne and gave up the life of luxury that came with it in order to be with his divorced American girlfriend, Wallis Simpson. As a consequence of his resignation, Edward lost his Royal Highness status and was given the lower title of Duke of Windsor. He and Simpson subsequently moved to France, having essentially been exiled from the United Kingdom. Not only did Edward require permission from his brother, the new king, to return, but there was a real chance that coming back might have sparked civil unrest in the country. Edward spent most of the rest of his days unemployed and living in a rented house in France, even though he deeply desired a government job in England. His return to his homeland was further stymied when he decided to flirt with Nazism, which, for obvious reasons, was highly frowned upon at the time. As it turns out, money was one of Edward's primary concerns when he abdicated the throne. In order to receive a greater payout from his brother, he appears to have vastly undervalued his assets, claiming that they were worth around $121,000 when his fortune was actually more than $1.4 million. Edward's ruse helped him score annual payments of what amounts to $1 million today, and he was also paid the modern equivalent of $10 million for his tell-all memoir. Many ex-royals lost their fortunes after centuries of dynastic rule. Not so for King Moshoeshoe II of Lesotho, however, who was the country's first king. But after he got his crown, he had a pretty hard time keeping it. The story of Moshoeshoe's rise and fall is actually kinda tragic. Moshoeshoe attended Corpus Christi College, Oxford, in England as a young man. He was the son of the paramount chief of Basutoland, a British colony, and when Basutoland became independent from Britain in 1966, Moshoeshoe's reign as the first king of Lesotho began. While some monarchs have a reputation for lounging inside luxurious palaces surrounded by sumptuous finery, Moshoeshoe was reportedly fond of the outdoors. He loved horses and hunting, and he even owned a ranch where he kept goats, sheep, and cattle. After attempting to increase the monarchy's power, which the constitution did not allow, Moshoeshoe was thwarted by Prime Minister Liabua Jonathan, who had him placed under house arrest. After Jonathan's government was ousted in a coup, Moshoeshoe tried to enact democratic elections and was exiled and deposed for his efforts. He then returned to England after losing access to his former palace. Finally, after another military coup overthrew the next government, democratic elections were held in Lesotho. With the help of Nelson Mandela, Moshoeshoe won his throne back. Unfortunately, he died in a car accident a year later in 1996. Okay, it's not like Prince Harry lost his entire fortune when he and Meghan Markle decided to step down from their official royal duties. It's actually pretty obvious that they're still living pretty well out in California. But in the couple's famous interview with Oprah Winfrey, Harry did say that leaving the royal family also meant he was cut off from their fortune.
We didn't have a plan. That was suggested by somebody else by the point of where my family literally cut me off financially, and I had to afford security for us.
Meghan and Harry also severed ties to the Queen's Sovereign Grant, which is the fund that pays for travel, maintenance, security, and other expenses associated with the royal lifestyle. The $3.2 million in renovations the couple made to Frogmore Cottage was originally paid for out of the Sovereign Grant, which is taxpayer funded. Meghan and Harry paid back the cost of the renovations themselves after stepping down as senior royals. Living in their new mansion in Los Angeles is also a big bank account drain. The Daily Mail estimates their yearly expenses to be around $4.4 million. But it's not like they're paupers. Harry mentioned in the Oprah interview that he still had his inheritance from his late mother, Princess Diana, which amounts to a total sum of $10 million. Not to mention the fact that the pair has been busy signing deals with the likes of Netflix and Spotify while embarking on several other business pursuits. Plus, Meghan still has the money she earned while she was working as an actor before marrying Harry. All in all, things could be worse. Prince Harry isn't the only member of the British royal family who has suffered a financial blow, however. In September 2020, CNBC reported that the British royal family was looking at a loss of almost $45 million thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. Did this mean the British royals had to start downsizing? Well, not exactly. Planned renovations of Buckingham Palace were scaled back, while it seemed that the royal purses would remain mostly intact for the time being. Michael Stevens, the so-called keeper of the Privy Purse, said at the time, "In responding to these challenges, we have no intention of asking for extra funding, but will look to manage the impact through our own efforts and efficiencies." During the pandemic, the cost of living like a queen, prince, duchess, and so on was also on the rise. According to Wales Online, the royals' costs reached $118 million for 2020 to 2021, a $24 million increase from the previous year. But these costs are really passed on to taxpayers, who reportedly paid $1.66 per person to keep supporting the royal family in 2020. It probably won't make them feel better to know that Queen Elizabeth II's net worth reportedly increased by almost over $20 million from 2020 to 2021, leaving her with a net worth of around $492 million. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Nicki Swift videos about your favorite royals are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.